Welcome back to Void of Fears. Before we jump into today's story, I've got to ask for a quick favour. If you could smash that like button, drop a comment below, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. It seriously makes a huge difference. YouTube's algorithm loves that stuff, and it pushes my videos to new viewers who might dig these stories too. I really appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to do that. It means the world to me and helps keep this channel growing. Alright, enough of me rambling. Let's dive into today's story. What if the Earth's deepest secrets aren't just geological, but ancient? Imagine a mining operation, miles beneath the surface, hitting something that shouldn't exist. Something that whispers of cosmic terror and defies all known science. This isn't just a discovery. It's an unveiling of what truly lurks below our world, and it will change how you view everything. The security footage is grainy, timestamped 11:47 PM on October 14th. A mining tunnel camera shows the empty corridor of Section 7, 4 miles beneath the Montana wilderness. The corridor is bathed in harsh white glow from industrial floods, shadows sharp and unforgiving. Then, without warning, everything changes. The lights don't flicker or fail. Instead, they begin to reveal something that wasn't there a moment before. A pale blue luminescence seeps into frame from the edges, moving like oil spreading across water. Except it's flowing upward, defying gravity, crawling along the ceiling toward the camera. The timestamp continues its steady count. At 11 hours, 47 minutes and 23 seconds, the luminescence reaches the camera lens. For 3 frames, the image shows something the human eye rejects, a geometry that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. Then static, pure white noise for 7 seconds. When the feed returns, the corridor is dark, every light extinguished. The emergency floods, designed to function even during total power failure, are gone. The darkness is so complete it seems textured, thick, almost alive. At the far end of the corridor, something moves. Not toward the camera, but past it, heading somewhere specific with ancient purpose. At 11 hours, 47 minutes and 45 seconds, the camera dies. The final diagnostic log shows all systems functional. The camera simply stopped perceiving, as if whatever moved past it had erased its ability to witness. This is the story of what happened that night at Copperidge Mine, and why some truths are meant to stay buried. Garrett Hayes sits across from me in a booth at Rosie's Diner off Highway 87 outside Billings, Montana. It's 2:30 in the afternoon, the lunch rush long over. We're alone. The waitress refilled his coffee 20 minutes ago. It sits untouched, a skin forming on the surface. His hands rest on the scarred table, and I notice his fingernails are bitten to the quick. Fresh wounds. His left hand trembles, a tremor he tries to hide by pressing his palm flat. He's 47, but looks a decade older. His face is gaunt, skin stretched tight over prominent cheekbones. His eyes are the worst part. They're the eyes of someone who's seen reality rewritten, trapped between the world he knew and the one he knows exists. I've spent half my life in the dark, he tells me, his voice rough and damaged. Later, I'll learn the night terrors started in November and haven't stopped. 15 years working underground. I thought I knew what darkness was, real darkness. Not just the absence of light, but the presence of something else. The weight of stone, the age of the rock, the sense that you're inside something vast and old. He stops, jaw working. I was wrong. I didn't know anything. His coffee sits between us, and I notice something strange. The surface is perfectly still, but there's a pattern forming. A spiral moving counterclockwise without any physical cause. Garrett notices me staring. He pushes the cup away without looking. It does that now, he says quietly. Liquids around me. They move on their own. Started 2 weeks after Copper Ridge. My doctor says it's hallucination, but you can see it too. I can. The coffee continues its slow spiral. Tell me about before, I say, when things were normal. He laughs without humour. Normal? Yeah. 6 months earlier, Garrett lived a life of comfortable routine. Wake at 6 p.m, make dinner, watch news, drive 43 miles to Copper Ridge, clock in at 8 p.m, descend with his crew, oversee drilling in the deepest sections, surface at 6 a.m. as sun came up, sleep, repeat, good life, excellent pay, challenging but satisfying work. He had a talent for deep earth operations, an intuitive understanding of how rock behaved under pressure. His crews trusted him, management relied on him. He'd found his place even if that place was 4 miles beneath the surface. Copper Ridge wasn't just any operation, it was a monument to human ambition, a vertical city carved into Montana bedrock. The main shaft descended 4.2 miles, making it one of the deepest active mines in North America. The deeper sections, particularly Section 7 where Garrett worked, existed at pressures and temperatures requiring specialized equipment and constant monitoring. At that depth, rock was hot to the touch. Air was recycled dozens of times, tasting metallic, processed, dead. But the workers adapted. Humans are adaptable. The weight of miles of rock became normal. The constant rumble of settling stone became white noise. The knowledge that you were deeper than most people would ever go became a source of pride. Until 3 weeks before October 14th, when the mine started changing. Subtle at first, Garrett tells me. Equipment acting weird. Drill bits damaged in ways that didn't match the rock. We bore through granite, standard stuff, but bits would come back scored and polished, like they'd been grinding through something harder than diamond. He shows me a photo. The drill bit, tungsten carbide, has one side worn normally. The other side is mirror smooth, polished to reflective sheen. That shouldn't happen. Tungsten carbide cuts through almost anything, but something down there was harder, polishing our bits while they cut. Temperature sensors recorded impossible fluctuations. Section 7 held steady at 92 degrees, normal for that depth. But increasingly sensors detected sudden drops, localized cold spots where temperature would plummet 30 or 40 degrees in seconds. Ice formed on tunnel walls where surrounding rock was hot enough to burn skin. We'd find frost patterns, Garrett says, showing another photo. Tunnel wall covered in crystalline ice formations, geometric, precise, repeating in fractals that look deliberate. Vincent said they looked like crop circles. We started calling them that, the circles. We'd come in for a shift and find new ones in areas we'd just worked. Always Section 7, never shallower. Vincent Ruiz had been Garrett's closest friend. 4 years together. Trusted each other with their lives where trust wasn't optional. Vincent found humour in anything. Crack jokes covered in rock dust 3 miles down. Kept morale up during long nights. He started having dreams 3 weeks out, Garrett says, voice quieter now. Didn't tell me until after. He'd wake up screaming. His wife called me, asked if anything had happened. I said no, everything was fine. But that was a lie. Vincent knew it. I knew it. We didn't want to admit it. The geological surveys told a story nobody wanted to believe. Leonard Ashford, operations supervisor, had reports spread across his desk in early September, trying to make sense of readings violating everything he understood about deep earth geology. I interview Leonard in his home in Helena. Retired now, took early retirement in November. Hasn't left much since. His wife brings coffee and leaves us alone. Walls covered with framed photos from 30 years in mining. No pictures from Copper Ridge. Those have been taken down. Density readings didn't make sense, Leonard says, pulling out survey copies. he kept despite being told to destroy them. At 4.1 miles we detected a void, large one, impossible. At that depth pressure is immense, thousands of pounds per square inch. Any cavity should have collapsed millions of years ago. Rock should have flowed like putty and filled any space. He points to seismic data, but this wasn't a gap or crack, this was a chamber, big one, and it was growing. Growing? Expanding. Every survey showed it slightly larger. Inches per week, but consistent. Measurable. Something down there was making space, pushing rock aside. Leonard received orders from corporate in late September. Breach the layer. Surveys suggested rich copper deposits beyond the void. Concentrations that could make Copper Ridge profitable for 20 more years. The board didn't care about impossible geology. They cared about quarterly earnings. I should have refused, Leonard says, hands shaking. Should have shut down, sealed Section 7, reported it. But I didn't. I authorized the breach. He looks at me with red-rimmed eyes. That decision has killed me. I mean literally. My doctor says 6 months. Aggressive cancer. Appeared from nowhere in November. Lymphatic system spreading everywhere. He says it's the fastest progression he's seen. Leonard smiles terribly. I don't think it's cancer. I think it's punishment. Something down there marked me. Now it's collecting. The final drilling operation was scheduled for October 14th. Garrett received his assignment October 10th. 4 days to prepare. Standard procedure for controlled breach. Except nothing felt standard. Unease building in Section 7 for weeks had intensified. Equipment failures were daily. Cold spots appeared with increasing frequency. And sounds had started. We'd hear things through the rock, Garrett says. At first, we thought normal mine sounds. Settling stone, distant excavation, water in cracks. But it didn't sound like those. It sounded like breathing. Deep, slow breathing. Like something massive, inhaling and exhaling on the other side of the wall. And sometimes singing. Singing? Not human, but melodic, musical, notes rising and falling in patterns. Vincent recorded some in early October. I still have the file. He connects his phone to a small speaker. The audio is poor quality, muffled by rock. For 10 seconds, only ambient mined noise. Equipment humming, ventilation pushing air. Then, beneath it all, something emerges. Almost musical, but wrong. The melody moves in ways that hurt to follow. Notes skip backwards. Harmonics don't resolve. Underneath, a rhythm like heartbeat, slow and patient, and utterly inhuman. The recording runs 37 seconds. When it ends, the diner feels too quiet. My coffee has gone cold. There's a spiral pattern in the liquid, counterclockwise, like Garrett's. That's what we heard a week before the breach, every shift, louder, closer, like whatever made that sound was moving toward us through solid rock. October 14th arrived with unseasonable cold, a Canadian front dropping temperatures into the 20s. Garrett's truck heater failed on the drive, 43 miles shivering, breath fogging. He almost turned around. Something in his gut said, call in sick. Let someone else handle this. But he was senior engineer on Section 7 operations. His responsibility. He clocked in at 8 p.m. and met his crew in equipment room. 4 total. Vincent Ruiz on drilling. Best bit operator in the mine. Callahan on safety. 20-year veteran who'd worked mines from Alaska to Chile. Yuki Tanaka handling systems and sensors. Genius with diagnostics who could make failing machinery run hours past expiration. They functioned like a single organism, checked equipment with practiced efficiency, emergency oxygen, communications, backup lights, medical supplies. At depth, you prepared for any contingency. The elevator to surface took 43 minutes. In emergency, 43 minutes might as well be forever. We descended at 9:30, Garrett tells me. Elevator ride down is always worst. You're in this metal cage, dropping through dark, feeling weight pile on with every level. At 1 mile, ears pop. At 2 miles, feel it in your chest, like someone sitting on you. At 3 miles, air tastes different, metallic and stale. By 4 miles, you're in a different world. Temperature above 90. Air so processed it barely feels like air. And the silence between mechanical sounds. The silence of being somewhere nothing was meant to live. Elevator reached section 7 at 10:14 p.m. Doors opened onto main corridor. Tunnel carved through granite and basalt. Wide enough for equipment. Work area was a bubble of light in absolute darkness. Industrial floods positioned to eliminate every shadow. They'd learned shadows were dangerous at depth, played tricks on tired eyes, made workers see movement where there was none, created hazards that could cripple or kill. Tonight, light seemed dimmer. Not failing, just less effective, as if darkness itself had grown thicker, more resistant. Drill site was at corridor end, where tunnel terminated at fresh rock face. They'd been working here 2 weeks, preparing for breach. Anomalous layer was 12 feet beyond this wall. 12 feet of granite, then whatever lay beyond. They began setup at 10:20 p.m. The drill was massive, capable of cutting solid stone at 6 inches per hour. Plan was pilot hole, 6 inches diameter, straight through to the void. Confirm what was there, then decide whether to expand or seal, and recommend different approach. I remember checking the bit one last time, Garrett says. It was new, pristine, no wear, no damage. I ran my hand along cutting edges, sharp enough to slice skin. I thought in a few hours this perfect tool would be scarred, marked by whatever we were drilling into. He stops. I didn't know how right I was, or how wrong. They activated drill at 10:37 p.m. Bit engaged rock face with shriek of metal on stone. Sound every miner knows in their bones. Human will versus planetary indifference. Futile but necessary violence of forcing our way into places we weren't invited. For 11 minutes everything proceeded normally. Drill cut granite at expected rate. Bit grinding forward with steady precision. Rock dust filled air despite ventilation. Noise was overwhelming, making communication impossible except through hand signals and helmet radios. Garrett monitored sensors on tablet. Drill speed, bit temperature, torque resistance, all normal. Rock composition matched surveys. Standard granite with trace copper. Good progress. At this rate, they breach in 90 minutes. At 10:48 p.m, Vincent's voice crackled through radio. Resistance changing, something's different. Garrett checked sensors. Vincent was right. Torque reading spiked suddenly, but encountering something harder than surrounding granite. Didn't match surveys. Should be uniform composition to the void. Push through, probably just quartz intrusion. Drill groaned, motor straining against unexpected resistance. For 3 minutes, progress slowed to crawl. Then at 10:52 p.m, everything changed. The drill punched through, no gradual breakthrough. One moment, grinding against stone, next spinning in empty air. Sudden loss of resistance sent drill lurching forward, entire assembly screaming as it plunged into void. Vincent killed power, but momentum carried it. 8 feet, 10, 12 before emergency brake engaged. They'd hit the cavity, 3 minutes ahead of schedule, which made no sense. Should have had 37 more minutes of drilling. We all just stared, Garrett says, trying to process. We were through, bit hanging in empty space beyond the rock, and that's when we noticed the air. The borehole, 6 inches diameter, had become a window between section 7 and whatever lay beyond. Air should have rushed out. Pressurized atmosphere escaping into void. Basic physics. Pressure equalizes high to low, but air was moving wrong. Wind blew into work area from the borehole. Cold wind, frigid wind. Wind carrying a smell like nothing Garrett had encountered. Something mineral and organic at once, like copper and rot and ozone mixed. We measured temperature drop in real time, Garrett says, showing sensor logs. 68 degrees at 10:51, 49 at 10:53, 28 at 10:54. 3 minutes. Work area dropped 40 degrees. Ice started forming. On equipment, walls, us. Our breath came out in clouds so thick you could barely see through them. Yuki ran diagnostics, checking for malfunctions. Everything showed green. Readings accurate. Something on the other side was pulling heat from air, creating temperature differential, defying thermodynamics. Callahan made the call they all knew was coming. We investigate before proceeding, deploy camera. Standard procedure, before expanding any borehole, assess what you found. Send fiber optic camera, survey cavity, document everything. Make informed decisions based on data. Yuki began setup at 10:57 p.m. Specialized unit designed for this work. Fiber optic cable with camera head small enough to fit through 6-inch hole, capable of transmitting high-definition video from 3 miles away. Used dozens of times to survey cavities and cracks, always finding what geology predicted. Empty space, rock walls, sometimes water or minerals. None expected what they found this time. Camera feed came online 11:04 p.m. Garrett's tablet showed view from inside bore. Whole, narrow tunnel of drilled rocks sliding past as Yuki fed cable deeper. Walls smooth, polished by bits passage. Normal. Expected. At 43 feet in, walls disappeared. Camera emerged into space so vast its lights couldn't find far walls. Tiny LED ring illuminated perhaps 20 feet in any direction. Only darkness beyond. Yuki adjusted focus, trying to bring anything into clarity. Nothing to focus on, just empty space extending in all directions. Pan left, Garrett ordered. Motorized head swiveled. More darkness. Lights caught something briefly, a reflection or glimmer, too far to resolve clearly. How big is this? Vincent asked, voice tight with excitement or fear. Probably both. Yuki activated integrated sonar. Sound waves pulsed into darkness, bouncing back to create rough map. Results appeared on Garrett's tablet as wireframe model. I interviewed Dr. Simone Archer 3 weeks after meeting Garrett. Geological engineer with 30 years studying deep earth formations, caves, underground structures. Consulted on projects from Gotthard Base Tunnel to Mumponen Gold Mine, deepest in the world. When I show her sonar data from Copper Ridge, she stares 5 full minutes without speaking. This is impossible, she finally says, not improbable. Impossible. This shows chamber half a mile diameter minimum. At 4.1 miles depth, lithostatic pressure would be approximately 12,000 pounds per square inch. Nothing maintains cavity this size at that pressure. Rock would flow like plastic and fill it. This can't exist. But it does. Dr. Archer pulls up different view, rotating wireframe. And look at orientation. Chamber extends upward, not downward. Rises from 4.1 mile depth towards surface, like inverted cone. At apex comes within approximately 1 mile of surface, 3 vertical miles of empty space inside Earth's crust, supporting itself against impossible pressure, as if someone carved a column from planet's interior and rock around it just cooperated. Could it be artificial? She looks at me with expression I can't read. If artificial, we need to reconsider everything about planetary history. Building this would require technology far beyond anything humanity developed. Moving millions of tons of rock, maintaining structural integrity where stone should be semi-molten. Whoever built this would understand geology and engineering at a level we can't conceptualize. What about the walls? Dr. Archer examines another image, section of chamber wall illuminated by camera lights. Rock appears smooth, almost glassy, with faint iridescence creating rainbow patterns. Basalt, but modified. Crystallized in ways requiring intense heat and pressure applied from inside out, as if something grew inside rock, transforming molecular structure as it expanded. She zooms in, and these striations, regular, repeating, almost like growth rings in tree. Whatever modified this rock did it slowly, over time, years, centuries, maybe longer. Back in Section 7, at 11:09 p.m, Garrett and crew watched as Yuki maneuvered camera deeper. Fiber optic cables spooled out. 50 feet, 100, 200. Camera descended through vast empty space, lights cutting through darkness that seemed almost thick, resistant. "Something's wrong with the darkness," Vincent said over radio. "Look at feed. Light should penetrate further. It's like air itself is opaque." He was right. LED ring was powerful enough to illuminate 50 feet in normal conditions. In chamber, effective range reduced to maybe 20. Beyond that, light simply stopped, absorbed by darkness behaving more like liquid than air. At 11:13 p.m, Yuki's voice came tight with tension. "Reading movement on motion sensors. Something's moving in chamber." Garrett checked tablet. Camera equipped with infrared motion detection, designed to spot environmental changes. Sensors showing multiple contacts, objects moving through space around camera. But video feed showed nothing, just darkness and small bubble of illumination. "Could be air currents," Callahan suggested, "temperature differentials creating convection." At 28 degrees, Yuki countered, everything should be still, frozen. Motion contacts increased. Whatever was moving was getting closer, circling camera, observing. Garrett felt heart rate spike, adrenaline flooding. Every instinct screamed to pull camera back. Seal bore hole, get crew out immediately. But he didn't, because he needed to see. They all needed to see. "Take us to chamber floor," he ordered. Yuki fed more cable, camera descending deeper. 500 feet, 800, 1,000. Chamber was far deeper than sonar suggested, extending down into depths that made the massive cavity seem less like hollow space and more like vast throat leading into planet's interior. At 11:24 p.m, camera lights found the floor. Garrett's breath caught. Vincent made sound that might have been laugh or sob. Callahan whispered something like prayer. Yuki was silent, but Garrett heard her breathing over radio, fast and shallow. Chamber floor wasn't rock. It was covered in structures, not natural formations. Not stalactites or stalagmites or crystals. Structures, built things, arranged things. Things placed with intent and purpose by something understanding architecture and design. They rose from chamber floor in spires and curves, in angles and geometries that hurt to perceive. Some tall and thin, reaching upward like fingers grasping at darkness above. Others wide and squat, crouching on stone like buildings or monuments. Not uniform, each unique but sharing common aesthetic. Similarity suggesting same builders or purpose. And they were old. Even through camera feed, even at distance, Garrett could see these structures had existed for a very long time. Weathered, eroded, marked by ages, but they hadn't collapsed, hadn't crumbled. They remained patient and permanent, waiting in darkness. "What are we looking at?" Vincent asked, voice barely above whisper. Nobody answered because nobody knew. This wasn't in geology textbooks, not in archaeological records. Something new and ancient at once. Something that shouldn't exist but undeniably did. Yuki maneuvered camera closer to one structure, bringing it in until object filled entire screen. Surface covered in markings, carved or etched or impressed into material. Symbols, writing, language. Garrett took screenshots, dozens, documenting every angle Yuki could provide. Symbols were intricate, flowing, comprised of curves and lines interconnecting, in ways suggesting meaning and grammar, but utterly foreign. Not pictographic like Egyptian hieroglyphs, not alphabetic like Latin or Greek. Something else entirely, writing system developed completely independently of any human linguistic tradition. I show these images to Dr. Nathan Cross 6 weeks after Copper Ridge incident, linguistic archaeologist specializing in dead languages and proto-writing. Published papers on Linear A, Rongorongo, Indus Valley script. Spent career trying to decipher writing systems, defying translation for centuries. When I show him symbols from Copper Ridge, he sits in silence 20 minutes, examining each image with increasing agitation. Finally, he looks up with expression, equal parts excitement and terror. This is language, absolutely, definitively language. Look at structure. These repeating symbol clusters, that's syntax, grammar. And here, these variations on central glyph, that's morphological complexity. Whoever wrote this had language as sophisticated as modern English or Mandarin, probably more sophisticated. Can you translate it? He laughs without joy. Translate it? I can't even categorize it. Every language on Earth, every writing system ever developed by humans, they all share certain fundamental characteristics, all evolved from same cognitive architecture, same neurological structures enabling language processing. Even completely isolated systems like Mayan glyphs or Rongorongo, they still follow patterns we recognize. He taps one image. This doesn't. Symbol density is wrong. Spacing suggests grammatical relationships that don't exist in human language. And look at directional flow. Not left to right or right to left or top to bottom. It spirals. Text curves in on itself, creates loops and recursions. Reading this would require processing multiple threads of meaning simultaneously, holding contradictory semantic relationships in mind at the same time. So you can't read it. I didn't say that. Dr. Cross pulls up particular image, close-up of symbol cluster, appearing repeatedly. I can't translate word for word, but I can get sense of it, overall meaning, and that's what terrifies me. He points to central glyph, symbol looking almost like spiral staircase descending into itself. This appears 147 times in your photos, always same position, always with same supporting glyphs. In linguistic terms, suggests core concept, something fundamental to whatever message is communicated. He traces surrounding symbols. These modifying glyphs indicate direction, orientation, relationship. Based on structural analysis and comparison with known systems, I believe this cluster translates roughly to what you call sky, we call floor. The phrase hangs between us. Dr. Cross continues, voice quiet but intense. But it's more complex. Glyphs don't just describe relationship. They describe correction, warning. Full meaning is closer to your understanding is inverted. What you perceive as above has always been below. You live in thin space between two realities and you have always been blind to this truth. He shows me another cluster, appearing at regular intervals around structures, and this repeats 89 times. Best translation, the sleepers wake, the boundary thins, the old agreement ends. Back in section 7 at 11:37 p.m, Garrett made decision that would haunt him forever. We report this immediately. Get corporate online. Get geological survey. Get someone who can tell us what we're looking at. But when Callahan tried communication system, he got nothing. Radio produced only static, thick and hissing, occasionally broken by sounds that might have been words, or might have been something else. Fiber optic line to surface was intact, all diagnostics green, but no signal would pass through. They were cut off, 4 miles down, staring at something defying explanation. No way to call for help or guidance. "We should pull back," Garrett said, training overriding curiosity. "Seal borehole, evacuate to Section 4, report when communications restore." But before they could act, the chamber acted first. The sound began at 11:34 p.m. Started low, below conscious hearing threshold, more felt than heard. Vibration resonating in chest cavities and bone structures, making teeth ache and eyes water. Then it rose, climbing through audible frequencies, becoming something that could be heard and processed and experienced. It was singing. Not human, not animal. Something else using sound the way light uses prisms, splitting into component frequencies that shouldn't coexist in same space. Beautiful and terrible at once. Melody, the human brain wanted to follow but couldn't quite grasp. Harmonies resolving in ways violating musical theory, while somehow feeling right. "Turn off speakers," Garrett ordered, thinking sound came through camera system. Yuki killed audio feed. Singing continued, unchanged. Not coming through equipment. Coming through borehole itself, travelling up 6-inch shaft, emerging into Section 7 like something alive and purposeful. Crew stood frozen, listening. Garrett felt sound worming into thoughts, creating patterns and ideas that weren't his own. He had sudden, overwhelming urge to move closer to borehole, to lean in and listen better, to climb through if he could, and descend into chamber to find source of that beautiful, terrible music. Vincent took step toward borehole, then another. "Vincent, stop!" Garrett grabbed his arm, pulled him back. Vincent's eyes were unfocused, pupils dilated to full blackness. "Vincent, look at me." Vincent blinked, awareness returning slowly. "I wanted to go down there. I needed to. It was calling me, Garrett. It knows my name." Temperature continued dropping. 20 degrees. 15. Ice formed on every surface, fractal patterns spreading across metal and stone. Frost wasn't random. It created symbols, same symbols carved into chamber structures below, reproducing themselves through simple thermodynamics and crystal formation. "We're leaving," Garrett said. "Now. Pack essential equipment only. Move." They responded with trained efficiency, but Garrett could see the effort. Singing was getting louder, more insistent, more difficult to resist. It promised things: understanding, belonging, answers to questions they'd never known they had, the chance to see what lay beneath world, to know truth humanity had been blind to for entire existence. As they gathered equipment, Yuki kept one eye at Ilay on tablet, monitoring camera feed from chamber below. At 11:41 p.m, she froze, staring at screen. "Garrett, you need to see this." He looked at the tablet. Camera still positioned near structures on chamber floor. But image had changed. Something was moving into frame. Multiple somethings. They were tall and thin, so elongated they barely seemed capable of standing upright. Limbs too long, joints in wrong places, moving in ways suggesting more dimensions than 3 Garrett's eyes could perceive. They didn't walk so much as flow, gliding across chamber floor without apparent effort. And they were approaching the camera. "Pull it back," Garrett ordered. "Now." Yuki activated winch, reeling in fiber optic cable. On screen, creatures reacted to camera movement, attention focusing on it with unmistakable intelligence. One reached out, limb extending far further than physics should allow, fingers or appendages or something spreading like flower blooming in fast motion. Screen went black. "Lost signal," Yuki reported. "Cables still intact but no video. Something cut transmission." "Reel it in anyway. We're not leaving it." Winch activated, motor humming as it spooled cable. They watched depth counter climb. 1,000 feet retrieved. 1,500. 2,000. Cables should have been emerging from borehole, but nothing appeared. Just more lines spooling in, impossibly more than they'd fed out. At 11:47 p.m, cable end came through. severed cleanly, fibre optic strands and protective sheath sliced with surgical precision. Camera was gone. More importantly, something on the other side had taken it. "We need to move," Callahan said, voice steady despite fear Garrett could see in his eyes. "If those things can cut through reinforced cable, they can come through 6-inch hole." "Nothing that tall fits through 6 inches, Vincent said, but he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Lights flickered. Not power fluctuation, something more deliberate. Floods dimmed, brightened, dimmed again in pattern, almost seeming to pulse with rhythm of singing still emanating from borehole. Then, from 6-inch opening in rock face, something emerged. Not solid, more like mist or vapor, but dense, coherent, holding shape approximating physical form. The luminescence they'd seen on security footage, pale blue glow that moved wrong. It poured from borehole like water flowing upward, defying gravity, spreading across Section 7 ceiling in patterns suggesting purpose and intelligence. Where it touched lights, they died. Not shattered, not burned out, simply ceased to exist. As if concept of artificial illumination was incompatible with this substance's presence. "Run!" Garrett shouted. They ran. Corridor back to elevator was 200 yards of straight tunnel. Normally 90-second sprint, even carrying equipment. But darkness was falling faster than they could run. Luminescence spreading across ceiling and down walls, cutting off retreat with methodical patience. Callahan was in lead, helmet light cutting through growing dark. Yuki right behind, one hand on his shoulder maintaining contact. Garrett ran third, and Vincent should have been right behind, bringing up rear the way they'd drilled for emergencies. But when Garrett looked back, Vincent wasn't there. He'd stopped, 50 yards back, standing in the middle of tunnel, facing approaching luminescence. His helmet light still functioned, cone of white in encroaching blue glow. But he wasn't moving, wasn't running. He was waiting. "Vincent!" Garrett skidded to stop, started back. Yuki grabbed his arm. "We can't help him. Garrett, we have to go. I'm not leaving him." But even as he said it, Garrett knew it was too late. Luminescence had reached Vincent, flowing down walls and across floor, surrounding him in sphere of cold blue light. And Vincent was smiling. Not grimace of fear or rictus of pain. Genuine smile, beatific and peaceful, expression of someone who'd finally found something they'd been searching for their entire life. Security footage from camera 7, recovered 3 days later, shows what happened in 19 seconds after luminescence enveloped Vincent Ruiz. Video is corrupted in places, frames missing or distorted by interference. But enough remains to piece together the event. For first 4 seconds, Vincent stands motionless, inside sphere of light. Then he begins to change. Not dramatically, not with horror movie transformation, subtly. His proportions shift, posture alters, movements become more fluid. At 7 seconds, he turns to face camera directly and his expression is wrong. Still Vincent's face, but animated by something that never learned quite how humans express emotion. At 11 seconds, he speaks. Audio's badly degraded, but Dr. Cross managed to isolate and analyze it. Vincent's mouth forms words in English, but simultaneously, something else speaks through him in that alien language from chamber structures. 2 voices overlay each other, creating dissonant harmony. English portion translates to, "I see now, I understand. The sky was always below us. We've been living upside down, thinking stone beneath our feet was foundation, when it was always ceiling. There are entire worlds below this one, layered like sediment, and they're waking up. They're coming back up to reclaim what was theirs before mammals inherited surface." Alien language says something different, according to Dr. Cross's analysis. The first witness acknowledges truth. The veil lifts, the sleeper stirs, the old compact dissolves. At 15 seconds, Vincent takes step toward camera. Then another. His movements are wrong, joints bending at angles that shouldn't work, feet touching ground in ways suggesting he's no longer entirely bound by gravity. At 18 seconds, he reaches toward camera lens, and his hand is wrong. Too many fingers, too many joints, skin that seems to shimmer and phase, existing in multiple states simultaneously. At 19 seconds, camera fails. Not with static or snow, but with image the recording codec can't properly save. Visual input breaking digital compression algorithm. Final frame is corrupted mess of pixels that, if you look long enough, seems to suggest patterns. Terrible patterns. According to 3 technicians who reviewed footage, patterns gave them nightmares for weeks. Garrett, Yuki, and Callahan reached elevator at 11:52 p.m. Callahan slammed gate closed with shaking hands and hit emergency ascend button. Nothing happened. Manual override? Garrett pulled open access panel, revealing mechanical backup. Every mining elevator has redundancies. Manual override was pure mechanical advantage. Cables and pulleys operated by hand crank. They engaged system, 3 people cranking handle in rotation, and elevator shuddered, groaned, began to rise. Slowly, painfully slowly. At manual speed, ascent to surface would take over 2 hours. 2 hours in metal cage, suspended in darkness, with something hunting them from below. Elevator climbed. 100 feet. 200. Lights in section 7 below began to fail. Darkness rising through levels like floodwater, but not random. Lights extinguished in sequence, starting at furthest reaches of section and moving steadily toward the elevator shaft. Something was following them up, staying just behind, pacing their ascent. Garrett could hear it. Through elevator shaft, through cables and metal cage, sounds rose from depths, not mechanical, organic. Movement, breathing, and beneath it all, the singing, that terrible, beautiful singing, promising understanding and belonging and truth. At section 6, 3 miles from surface, Yuki's tablet chimed. She'd kept it active, monitoring what system she could access. Seismic activity, all of section 7, massive displacement, like the whole level is collapsing. No, not collapsing, expanding. Rock is moving aside, making space for something. How big? Garrett asked. Yuki checked readings, then looked up at him with eyes that had given up on making sense of anything. The entire section. All of it. Something is filling the space we carved out, occupying it, claiming it. At section 5, Callahan's radio crackled to life. They'd been in communication blackout since borehole opened. But now somehow signal was getting through. Static poured from speaker, thick and hissing. But beneath it, something else, a voice. Vincent's voice. Garrett, you have to come back. You have to see this. It's beautiful down here. They've shown me things, Garrett. Real shape of world. True history of planet. We think we're dominant species, but we never were. We're just temporary caretakers, maintaining surface while real inheritors sleep below, and they're waking up now. They're ready to reclaim what was always theirs. That's not Vincent, Yuki whispered. That's something else using his voice. Elevator continued, agonizing climb. 2 miles from surface now, halfway home. But sounds from below were getting closer, climbing faster than elevator could rise. Whatever was pursuing them didn't need mechanical assistance. It was moving through shaft with organic efficiency, flowing up through darkness like smoke in reverse. At 12:34 a.m., elevator stopped. Section 4, still 2 miles from safety. Manual crank seized, jammed, refusing to turn. Garrett and Callahan threw combined weight against it, but mechanism wouldn't budge. Something had failed, or been damaged, or been sabotaged by forces that could reach through stone and metal and make machinery betray its designers. Emergency release, Garrett said. "We disengage brake, let momentum carry us up." "That's insane," Callahan protested. "If emergency catch at top fails, we hit ceiling at terminal velocity." "If we stay here, we die," Garrett said flatly. "I saw what happened to Vincent. I won't let that happen to us." Below them, in shaft, luminescence appeared. Faint blue glow, far down in depths, rising steadily, and with it, sounds. Scraping, clicking, movement that didn't correspond to any biology Garrett understood. "Do it," Yuki said. Callahan pulled emergency release lever. Brake disengaged with metallic scream. An elevator lurched, fell for 3 terrifying seconds, then caught on auxiliary cable and began to rise. Faster now, much faster, accelerating as gravity and counterweights fought for dominance. Elevator car shook violently, metal groaning under stress it wasn't designed to handle. Garrett gripped safety rail, watching level indicators blur past Section 3, Section 2. 1 mile from surface, half mile, quarter mile. Behind them, luminescence burst into shaft, flooding upward with terrible speed. Close now, close enough that Garrett could see details in its structure. It wasn't uniform. There were forms within it, shapes suggesting anatomy and purpose, entities existing in space between matter and energy, between physical and something else. And faces. He could see faces in glow, not human faces, older faces, original faces, faces that had looked up at stars when stars were young, before continents formed, before oceans cooled, when Earth was still deciding what kind of world it would become. Elevator hit emergency catch at top of shaft at 1:38 a.m. Impact was brutal, throwing all 3 occupants to floor. Metal screamed. Cables sang with released tension. But catch held, and they were alive. Garrett pulled open gate and they stumbled out into surface facility, into air that tasted clean and cold and real. Emergency teams were already there, alerted by partial telemetry that had somehow made it through despite blackout. Medics rushed forward. Supervisors shouted questions. Security established perimeter, but Garrett barely registered any of it. He was staring back at elevator shaft, watching luminescence rise up from below. It reached surface level, spilled out into facility like water breaching dam. But then, at threshold between underground and surface, it stopped. Blue glow hovered at the edge of shaft, pulsing with same rhythm as singing, which Garrett could still hear even here, even in open air. Luminescence reached out, tendrils of light extending towards surface world, testing boundary. But it couldn't cross. Something was holding it back, some rule or law or agreement it couldn't quite break. Not yet. As medics checked him over, as supervisors demanded explanations, as nightmare of bureaucracy and incident response kicked into gear, Garrett watched luminescence retreat back into shaft. Slowly, reluctantly. Like something that had tested its prison and found it still secure. But not for much longer. 3 people had emerged from Section 7. Vincent was gone, consumed or transformed or recruited by whatever lived in chamber below. Callahan had collapsed on surface, body shutting down from shock and hypothermia. Loaded into ambulance, still unresponsive, eyes open but not seeing anything in this world. Yuki stood apart from crowd, staring at nothing, face blank. When I interview her 6 months later, after tracking her down in Portland, where she lives under new name, she refuses to discuss most of what happened. But she tells me this: we opened door meant to stay closed. We drilled into something that had been sealed away, imprisoned or sleeping or waiting, and we woke it up. Now it knows we're here. It knows surface world exists, knows there are billions of humans living in thin layer between sky and stone, and it wants to reclaim what it thinks is rightfully its domain. She looks at me with eyes that have seen too much, You want to know worst part? It's not alone. Symbols in that chamber, warnings Dr. Cross translated, they weren't put there by things that sleep below. They were put there by something else, something that came before, something that locked those entities away for reason. And warnings are clear. Seals are failing. Boundaries are weakening. All over world, in deep places where humans have drilled and mined and extracted, we're breaking through to chambers and spaces meant to remain forever sealed. What happens when all seals break? I ask. Yuki doesn't answer. She just hands me a piece of paper with coordinates. These are all locations where similar incidents have been reported and covered up. Australia, Chile, South Africa, Russia, Iceland, Norway. 17 sites total. You want to know what's really happening? Start investigating these, but be careful. The more you learn, the more you become noticed. Noticed by what? By things that live in spaces between, entities that exist in gaps we've carved from Earth. They're watching now, they're aware of us, and they're waiting. Within 72 hours of Copper Ridge incident, mine was sealed. Not just closed or shut down. Sealed. Entombed. Buried under so much concrete and steel and stone that it would take nuclear weapon to breach it again. Borehole was filled with quick-setting concrete, layer after layer, until entire drill shaft was solid plug. Then, steel bulkheads installed, 3-foot thick barriers, designed to withstand anything short of direct nuclear strike. Then, more concrete, entire Section 7 sealed behind multiple redundant barriers, tomb within tomb. Main elevator shaft was collapsed, using controlled explosives, bringing down millions of tons of rock to bury deep levels forever. Surface entrances were filled, paved over. An entire site was purchased by Shell Corporation and declared permanent hazardous waste site. Fences went up, security patrols established. Anyone caught trespassing faces federal charges. Leonard Ashford tells me all this from hospital bed. Cancer has ravaged him in 6 months, since October. He's skeletal, skin hanging from bones, barely able to speak, above whisper. But he insisted on this interview, insisted on telling someone what really happened. They didn't seal it to protect people from contamination or hazards, he says, each word an effort. They sealed it because something was trying to get out. In 3 days between incident and final seal, seismic monitors recorded constant activity, something moving in deep sections, testing rock, looking for weaknesses. They consulted geologists, physicists, engineers. Consensus was that whatever was down there was attempting to expand chamber, to create pathways to surface. He shows me classified reports he managed to copy before forced retirement. Documents heavily redacted, but what remains is damning. References to unprecedented geological activity of apparently non-natural origin. Recommendations from multiple agencies to establish exclusion zones and constant monitoring. Discussion of contingency measures if seals fail, including possibility of deliberate collapse of surrounding geological structures to ensure permanent entombment. They're talking about triggering earthquake, Leonard explains. If whatever is in Copper Ridge manages to break through seals, they'll collapse entire region. They'll sacrifice everything within 50 miles to make sure it stays buried. They've already moved triggering charges into position. They're just waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting to see if seals hold. He coughs, blood speckling his lips. But they won't. I've seen latest seismic data. My clearance was never fully revoked. I still have friends who send information. Activity is increasing, regular pulses coming from deep below seal. Growing stronger every week. It's testing barriers, learning their structure, figuring out how to break through. How long do we have? Leonard looks at me with eyes that have accepted death and found something worse beyond it. Projections suggest complete seal failure within 18 to 24 months. But that's just Copper Ridge. What about other sites? What about all other places where we've drilled too deep and found things we shouldn't have found? How many seals are failing right now? How many of these things are waking up? He dies 3 weeks after our interview. Official cause is complications from lymphatic cancer, but attending physician makes note in his file that's never officially reported. Leonard's final words, spoken in his last moment of consciousness, were in language doctor didn't recognize. Language that, when recorded and analysed, matches phonetic structure of symbols found in Copper Ridge Chamber. Vincent Ruiz is still alive, if alive is right word. Found wandering on surface 3 days after incident, 2 miles from mine entrance with no memory of how he got there. Last conscious memory is standing in Section 7, looking at something beautiful in darkness, committed to Yellowstone Behavioral Health Center for observation and treatment. Dr. Benjamin Hart has been his primary psychiatrist for 6 months. Vincent's case is unique in psychiatric literature, Dr. Hart tells me. He doesn't present with typical trauma responses. No PTSD, no panic, no fear responses whatsoever. Instead, he's experiencing what I can only describe as reverse trauma. He saw something that should have broken his mind, but instead of breaking, his mind expanded. He now perceives reality in ways normal human neurology shouldn't allow. Dr. Hart shows me Vincent's drawings. They fill dozens of sketchbooks, hundreds of pages of intricate imagery. Spirals within spirals. Structures that seem to fold in on themselves. Geometries creating optical illusions, even on flat paper. And everywhere, symbols from chamber, reproduced with perfect accuracy from memory. Fascinating and terrifying thing, Dr. Hart says, is that Vincent's drawings are accurate. We've compared them to photographs from Copper Ridge. He's reproducing chamber structures exactly, down to details that weren't visible in original images. He's either accessing buried memories with perfect recall, or he's still receiving information from whatever he encountered, still connected somehow. I'm allowed to interview Vincent under strict supervision. He sits in common room, sketch pad in hand, drawing while we talk. His movements are fluid, almost mechanical in precision. His eyes, when he looks at me, are wrong. Pupils too large, too dark, like looking into wells going down forever. "You want to know what I saw?" he says. Not a question. You want me to describe chamber, structures, entities, but I can't. Not in words you'd understand. Language evolved for talking about survival on surface, finding food, avoiding predators, forming social bonds. It's not equipped to describe what exists below, what's always existed below. Try, I say. Vincent stops drawing, looks at me with those wrong eyes. Imagine you're an ant living your entire life on surface of vast sphere. You can walk anywhere on that surface, explore every direction, and you think you understand your world. But you don't, because you're only experiencing 2 dimensions of 3-dimensional object. There's entire realm above and below you that you can't perceive, can't access, can't even conceptualize. That's what we are, surface dwellers. We think Earth is solid rock, all the way to core, because that's what we can observe and measure. But we're wrong. He holds up sketchpad. Drawing shows Earth, but sectioned like onion, layers upon layers. Planet isn't solid. It's layered with spaces, chambers, voids, entire realms that exist in gaps between rock and magma, and things live there, things that were here before. First amino acids combined in prehistoric oceans, things that will be here after sun expands and scorches, surface to sterile ash. The things you saw. Things I joined, Vincent corrects, because that's what happened. I didn't just observe them, they assimilated me, took me into their fold. I'm still Vincent Ruiz, still have my memories and personality, but I'm also more now. I can perceive spaces between. I can feel boundaries thinning. I can hear them singing from every deep place in world, calling to each other, coordinating. Preparing. Preparing for what? Vincent smiles, and it's the most terrible thing I've ever seen. Because it's still human smile, still has human warmth, but it's expressing something utterly inhuman. Preparing to reclaim what was always theirs. Surface, sky, thin layer where humanity thinks it's safe. They were here first. They built their civilizations in deep places billions of years ago, when Earth was still cooling. But then something happened. Some catastrophe, or war, or cosmic event. They were forced deep, buried, sealed away by powers we can't comprehend, and they've been sleeping, waiting, biding time until seals weakened, and they could return. What can we do to stop them? Stop them? Vincent laughs. You can't stop them. They're inevitable. They're already rising. Every deep mine, every geothermal well, every tunnel humanity bores into Earth. We're creating pathways for them, highways to surface. And when enough of those pathways open, when enough of them reach surface simultaneously, he doesn't finish sentence. He doesn't need to. I leave Yellowstone Behavioral Health Center with Vincent's final words echoing in my mind. The sky was always below us, we just didn't know to look down. Callahan's body was never recovered. Initial search teams went as far as Section 4, before refusing to go deeper. They reported strange phenomena. Temperature fluctuations making instruments malfunction, sounds echoing up from below that didn't match any known geological process, and pervasive sense of wrongness, making several team members violently ill. Search officially called off after 4 days. Callahan declared dead, cause listed as industrial accident, body unrecovered. His family held memorial with empty casket, but there are rumours, unconfirmed reports from security personnel maintaining Copper Ridge perimeter. They claim to see light sometimes deep in sealed sections, visible through cracks in concrete, blue-white luminescence pulsing with rhythmic precision. And sometimes late at night they hear sounds from below, not settling rock or expanding metal. Voices. Human voices calling up from impossible depths, begging to be let out, or warning people to stay away. Reports are inconsistent, contradictory, but they're persistent. One security guard who spoke to me on condition of anonymity describes experience from 3 months ago, doing routine perimeter check at 2 a.m. when he heard his name called. Not over radio. From below from sealed mine entrance. He approached cautiously and heard it again. His name, pronounced perfectly, in voice sounding like his dead brother. Brother who died in mining accident 15 years earlier. I knew it wasn't real, guard tells me. I knew it was something trying to lure me closer, but I couldn't help myself. I needed to know. I got right up to sealed entrance, put my ear against concrete, and I heard him, my brother, speaking to me from other side, telling me things only he could know. Family secrets, childhood memories. He said he wasn't dead. He was living in deep places now, with others who'd been taken below. He said it was beautiful down there, peaceful, that I should join him. What did you do? I ran, got in my truck, and drove until I hit Billings. Called supervisor, told him I quit. He didn't try to talk me into staying. I think he understood. I think he's heard things too. They all have. Everyone who works that site. They just don't talk about it because talking about it makes it real. I visit Dr. Simona Archer again to discuss ongoing seismic activity at Copper Ridge and similar sites worldwide. She's aged noticeably since first interview, stress and sleepless nights taking toll. Her office is covered in maps, seismograph printouts, geological surveys from 24 deep mining operations. Activity is coordinated, she tells me, pointing to world map with 17 red pins. Look at timing. Copper Ridge started showing irregular signatures October 14th at 10:52 p.m. Exactly 17 minutes later, geothermal well in Iceland recorded similar activity. 43 minutes after that, diamond mine in South Africa, then Australia, Chile, Norway, Russia, all within 6-hour window. Could be coincidence, I suggest, though I don't believe it. At first, I thought so too, but look at frequency analysis. She pulls up charts showing sound wave patterns. Each site is producing seismic vibrations at specific frequencies, and those frequencies, when mapped together, create harmonics. They're resonating with each other, singing to each other across thousands of miles through Earth's crust itself. What are they saying? I don't know, but whatever it is, it's changing. Frequencies are shifting, patterns evolving. Like language, like something is communicating, coordinating global response to whatever we woke up when we drilled into their domains. She shows me most recent data from Copper Ridge, dated 2 weeks ago. Seismic activity has intensified dramatically. Regular pulses that have characterized site's activity for months are gone. Instead, seismograph shows continuous activity, violent spikes and fluctuations suggesting massive displacement underground. Projections are worse than Leonard told you, Dr. Archer says quietly. Seals won't hold for 18 months. Based on current rate of degradation, we have 6 months at most, and that's just Copper Ridge. Some other sites are failing faster. Australian mine already showing surface level effects. Ground subsidence, thermal anomalies, unexplained atmospheric phenomena. What happens when seals fail? Dr. Archer looks at me with absolute resignation. I don't know, but I've done calculations. If all 17 sites experience simultaneous seal failure, and if entities contained within are able to emerge and coordinate actions, we're looking at global geological catastrophe, not earthquakes or volcanoes, something worse, something that will rewrite surface of planet. Government must be planning response. Oh, they are. I've seen contingency plans. They're called broken arrow protocols, which should tell you everything. If seals fail, they'll attempt to collapse all 17 sites using thermobaric weapons, and, if necessary, tactical nuclear devices. They'll try to bury entities so deep it would take millions of years to dig back out. Will it work? I don't know. These things survived being buried for billions of years. They existed when Earth's surface was molten rock. They've endured continental drift, mass extinctions, ice ages, atmospheric changes that would sterilize modern life. What makes us think our weapons would do more than inconvenience them? I meet Garrett Hayes one final time in late April. 6 months have passed since Copper Ridge. He's called me, said he has something to show me, something I need to see before I finish this documentary. We drive out to site together, taking back roads winding through Montana wilderness until we reach exclusion zone. Area is heavily posted with warnings. Private property, no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted. But Garrett knows way around perimeter, hiking trail coming within quarter mile of former mine entrance. We walk in silence, spring sunlight filtering through pines, birds singing. Normal, peaceful, beautiful. But underneath, I feel something. Vibration, subtle but persistent, coming up through ground, like standing near highway and feeling traffic rumble through bones. Except this is more rhythmic, more deliberate. We reach clearing overlooking sealed mine site. From here, I can see extent of operation. Entire area paved over, concrete covering acres of former industrial facility. Heavy equipment sits abandoned, too contaminated or tainted to be removed. And at center, where main shaft entrance used to be, massive concrete dome rises like tumor on landscape. That's where we went down, Garrett says, pointing. 4.2 miles straight down through the rock that had been solid and stable for billions of years. We thought we were explorers, pioneers, expanding humanity's reach into depths of our own planet. But we weren't explorers. We were trespassers. And we woke up something meant to stay asleep. Oh. He's aged terribly in 6 months. Hair completely white, face gaunt, lined with wrinkles speaking of stress beyond human tolerance. Hands shake constantly now, and I notice he takes pills from bottle every few hours. When I ask what they are, he says anti-anxiety medication prescribed by therapist, but they don't help, they just take edge off constant terror. Feel that? He asks, placing hand flat on ground. I do. Vibration is stronger here, more pronounced. Steady pulse like heartbeat, except far too slow. 1 beat every 7 seconds, regular as clock. It's been doing that since they sealed it, Garrett says, getting stronger every week. Exclusion zone was originally just mile radius. 3 months ago they expanded it to 5 miles. Next month, they're planning to evacuate Copper Ridge Town entirely. 1,200 people being relocated because government won't tell them why. Just compensation packages and non-disclosure agreements and threats of prosecution if anyone talks to media. What do you think is going to happen? Garrett is silent for a long time, staring at concrete dome. I have dreams. Every night. Same dream over and over. I'm back in Section 7, standing at borehole. But this time, I'm not afraid. This time, I lean forward and look through hole into chamber beyond. And I see it. True shape of what's down there. What do you see? It's not creature, not entity. It's bigger than that. It's civilization. Entire civilization that exists in spaces below, that's been there since before first prokaryote split in primordial ocean. They built structures spanning continents, carved highways through mantle, created chambers, and spaces that honeycomb entire planet. And we're living on roof of their world. We always have been. We're invasive species, latecomers, temporary infestation that thinks it owns surface because we've been here for a few 100,000 years. He pulls out phone, shows me image. Geological, cross-section of North America, but annotated with strange markings. Lines and symbols suggesting connections and pathways. I've been compiling reports from every deep mining operation, every geothermal well, every tunnel system, going below 2 miles. And I've found patterns. Chambers aren't random, they're positioned deliberately, spaced at regular intervals, across globe. They're nodes in network. Vast planetary network we never knew existed, because we never looked deep enough. What's network for? Communication maybe, transportation, power distribution. I don't know, but it's active, it's functioning. And now that we've broken through to it, now that we've connected our surface facilities to their deep infrastructure, they can use our tunnels to reach up, to access surface for first time in epochs. Garrett zooms in on image, focusing on Montana region. I can see Copper Ridge marked with red dot, but there are other marks too, clusters of smaller dots surrounding it in pattern, suggesting deliberate arrangement. What are those? Abandoned mines, wells that ran dry. Tunnel systems sealed decades ago for safety reasons. Except they weren't sealed because they were dangerous. They were sealed because people working them found things, heard things, saw things that made them run screaming for surface. He points to one cluster. This area, 30 miles east of Copper Ridge. Between 1967 and 1983, 7 separate mining operations were started and abandoned. 7 times companies drilled into these mountains looking for copper or silver or rare earth metals, and 7 times they sealed mines and walked away, leaving millions of dollars of equipment behind. They found chambers. I think they found network, different branches, different nodes, and I think entities in those chambers have always been aware of us, have always been listening to us, digging and drilling above them, but they couldn't reach us. Something was holding them back, some seal or barrier or rule preventing them from ascending, until Copper Ridge, until we drilled directly into one of major nodes and created pathway. Vibration through ground intensifies for a moment, surge making birds take flight from nearby trees. Then it settles back to regular pulse, but I notice something new. Rhythm has changed slightly. Faster now, if only by fraction of a second. One beat every 6.8 seconds instead of 7. Garrett notices too. His face goes pale. It's speeding up, been speeding up since October. When we first measured it, pulse was once every 11 seconds. Now it's every 6.8. If it continues at this rate, by September, pulse will be once per second. And I think that's threshold. That's when seal fails completely, and whatever's down there comes up. We sit in silence, feeling earth breathe beneath us. I think about what Vincent said, about ants on surface of sphere, unable to comprehend full dimensions of their world. I think about Leonard, dying from cancer that might not be cancer. I think about blue luminescence rising through elevator shaft, testing boundary between below and above. Why did you bring me here? I ask. Because you need to understand. This documentary you're making, it's important. People need to know what's happening. Not just at Copper Ridge, but everywhere. All over world, in every place where humans have gone deep. We're breaking through to something ancient and vast and patient, and we're running out of time to prepare. Prepare for what? If what you're saying is true, if there's planetary civilization living beneath us, that's waking up and coming to surface, what can we possibly do? Garrett looks at me with eyes that have given up on hope but not on honesty. I don't know, but we have to try. We have to warn people. We have to make them understand that world they think they know is lie. We're not dominant species on this planet. We never were. We're just surface dwellers, living in thin layer between sky and something else, something older and stranger, and infinitely more permanent than us. He stands, brushes dirt from pants. Come on, there's something else I need to show you. We walk around perimeter of exclusion zone, following game trails through forest. After 20 minutes, we reach area where ground has subsided, creating shallow depression about 30 feet across. Trees at edge lean inward, roots partially exposed where soil has dropped. This appeared 2 months ago, Garrett says, overnight. Seismologists claim it's normal ground settlement shifting soil composition. But look at shape. I look. Depression is almost perfectly circular, edges sharp and defined, and at center ground is darker, discolored, as if something has leached minerals from soil. There are 17 of these around Copper Ridge site, all formed in last 4 months, all perfectly circular, all showing same soil discoloration. Official explanation is sinkholes caused by groundwater erosion. But there's no groundwater in this area. Geology doesn't support it. What do you think they are? Preliminary breaches, test sites. Whatever's below its probing surface, finding weak points, determining where it can push through most easily. These circles are where barrier between below and above is thinnest, and they're spreading. 2 months ago, nearest one was 5 miles from mine entrance. This one is only 3 miles away. At this rate, by August, they'll be reaching populated areas. We approach edge of depression. Air above it seems to shimmer slightly, like heat haze, though temperature is cool. And there's smell, faint but distinct. Same smell Garrett described from Section 7. Copper and rotten ozone mixed together. Don't get too close, Garrett warns. Monitoring equipment around these sites occasionally shows spikes in electromagnetic radiation. Nothing dangerous yet, but levels are increasing. As we stand there, I notice something at center of depression. Movement. Subtle, almost imperceptible. Dark soil is rippling, undulating in slow waves radiating outward from center, like water disturbed by something rising from below. Do you see it? Garrett whispers. I do, we both do. For just a moment, maybe 3 seconds, air above depression center distorts. Reality seems to fold in on itself, creating shape my eyes refuse to process properly. It's there and not there simultaneously, existing in dimensions my brain can't interpret. Then it's gone, and there's just disturbed soil and shimmering air. That happens more frequently every time I come here, Garrett says, backing away from depression. Whatever's below, it's getting stronger. It's learning how to exist in our dimensional space, practicing, preparing. We return to car in silence. As we drive away from exclusion zone, Garrett tells me one final thing. 3 days ago, I received visit from 2 federal agents. No badges, no identification, just expensive suits and kind of authority that doesn't need to be announced. They asked me questions about Copper Ridge, specific questions about what I saw in chamber, what I heard, what I experienced. I told them everything. They listened without comment, took notes, thanked me for cooperation. As they were leaving, one of them said something I can't stop thinking about. What did he say? He said, "Mr. Hayes, you and your crew aren't first people to breach one of these chambers. Over past centuries, similar incidents have occurred at 37 sites worldwide. In every case, we've managed to contain breach and maintain operational security, but breaches are becoming more frequent and more difficult to contain. We're running out of concrete and steel and excuses, and things below are running out of patience." That's last time I speak with Garrett Hayes face to face. He continues to send me information, documents, photos, seismograph readouts. His emails become increasingly urgent, increasingly desperate. Final email arrives September 3rd, exactly 11 months after Copper Ridge incident. Subject line reads, "It's happening." Email body contains only link to live seismograph feed from Copper Ridge monitoring station. I open it and watch readout in real time. Regular pulses characterizing site's activity for months are gone. Instead, seismograph shows continuous activity, violent spikes and fluctuations suggesting massive displacement underground. Timestamp shows activity began at 2:47 AM and has been continuous for 6 hours. I try calling Garrett, no answer. I try texting, no response. Over following days, I attempt to contact him dozens of times. Nothing. September 7th, I receive call from Helena number I don't recognize. It's Garrett's therapist, Dr. Helena Morrison. She informs me Garrett Hayes was admitted to Helena Regional Medical Center September 4th, unresponsive, suffering from what appears to be severe seizure. He's been in coma ever since. Doctors can't explain what's wrong. All vitals normal. Brain activity normal, but he won't wake up. There's something else, Dr. Morrison says. Something doctors asked me not to discuss, but I think you should know. When Garrett was admitted, he was speaking. Not coherently, just fragments. But strange thing is, he was speaking multiple languages simultaneously. English, obviously, but also languages medical staff didn't recognize. Hospital brought in linguistics professor from University of Montana. He recorded some, tried to identify languages. He couldn't. Said they didn't match any known linguistic family. Can I hear recording? Long pause. I'm going to send you file, but I want you to promise something. Don't listen alone. Don't listen at night. And if you start feeling compelled to act on what you hear, stop recording immediately and delete it. Can you promise? I promise, though I don't fully understand why. File arrives by encrypted email 10 minutes later. I download it to isolated laptop, one not connected to any network. Then, despite Dr. Morrison's warning, I listen alone in my apartment at 11 PM. Recording is 18 minutes long. Begins with ambient hospital sounds, beeping monitors, hushed voices. Then, Garrett's voice emerges, weak and strained. For first 2 minutes, just garbled nonsense, syllables that don't connect to form words. But gradually, patterns emerge, rhythms. Same cadence I heard in audio from Section 7, same melodic quality as singing from chamber. At 7 minutes, voice changes. Still, Garrett's vocal cords producing sound, but something else is speaking through him. Alien language from chamber structures, symbols translated by Dr. Cross. I don't understand words, but I feel them. They create sensations in my mind, images and concepts that don't correspond to anything in human experience. At 12 minutes, English words begin to surface, mixed with alien language, fragments of meaning, ascending, boundary dissolving, old compact ends. What sleeps below wakes above. Sky was always floor. At 15 minutes, voice becomes layered, as if multiple entities are speaking through Garrett simultaneously. Hospital equipment in background begins to malfunction, alarms sounding, monitors displaying error messages. Medical staff rush into room, urgent voices overlapping with Garrett's multiplied speech. At 17 minutes 34 seconds, Garrett says something in clear, perfect English. They're coming through. All 17 sites, simultaneous emergence. Network activates. Surface will know what has always lived below. September 21st, midnight, sky falls upward. Then silence. Recording ends abruptly. I sit in dark apartment, laptop screen casting only light, and I understand I've just been given date. Deadline. September 21st is 2 weeks away. I spend those 2 weeks in frenzy of research and investigation. I contact everyone I've interviewed for this documentary, compile all data, cross-reference every detail. And patterns emerge. Terrible patterns. Dr. Archer sends me updated seismic data from all 17 sites. Activity is synchronized. What's happening at Copper Ridge is happening everywhere. Australia, Chile, South Africa, Iceland, Norway, Russia, China, Canada. In every location where humans drilled deep enough to reach network of ancient chambers, something is responding. Amanda Sterling forwards me leaked government documents. Emergency preparedness, protocols being distributed to military bases worldwide. Evacuation plans for major population centers near deep mining operations. Strategic weapons being repositioned. Documents classified at highest levels, but she's found ways to access them. One document in particular catches attention. It's titled Project Inverted Sky, Contingency Response to Subterranean Emergence Event. Content heavily redacted, but what remains is revealing. Government has been aware of deep chambers for at least 40 years. They've known about entities within them. They've been monitoring, studying, attempting to communicate, and they've been preparing for this scenario. Simultaneous breach at multiple sites, followed by surface emergence of what document calls pre-tectonic entities. Recommended response is codenamed Scorched Depth Protocol. If entities successfully breach containment and reach surface, military forces are authorized to use thermobaric weapons and, if necessary, tactical nuclear devices to collapse mine systems and bury entities. Document estimates acceptable casualties in low millions if deployment occurs near populated areas. They're willing to nuke their own territory to keep whatever's below from reaching surface. September 18th, 3 days before date, Garrett gave in his recording, something happens that makes international news, though true significance is buried under official explanations and media manipulation. Geothermal drilling site in Iceland experiences what's reported as catastrophic equipment failure. Drilling platform collapses into well shaft, killing 7 workers. But videos captured by nearby residents show something else. In hours before collapse, blue luminescence was seen emanating from well. Witnesses describe sounds like singing, music that made them want to approach site despite obvious danger. And in final moments before platform collapsed, something emerged from well. Multiple witnesses describe it as pillar of light that rose into sky before dispersing. Site is immediately quarantined. Military forces establish 5-mile exclusion zone. Official statements blame gas leak and structural failure. But I know what really happened. Seal failed. Something came through, and it was only first. September 19th, 2 days before predicted emergence, I receive package via overnight courier. No return address, just my name and note. You need to see this before it's too late. Inside is hard drive containing video footage from multiple sources. Security cameras, news helicopters, civilian phones. All dated September 18th and 19th. All showing similar events at different locations worldwide. Australian mining operation. Massive sinkhole opens at site of sealed mine, swallowing concrete barriers and security infrastructure. Blue luminescence pours from opening, like smoke, in reverse. Footage grainy, shot from distance, but I can see shapes in light. Tall shapes moving with purpose. Chilean lithium mine. Workers evacuate as temperature drops suddenly to below freezing. Ice forms on equipment despite desert heat. Something rises from sealed shaft entrance, something cameras can't properly capture, creating visual distortions and lens flares obscuring details. South African diamond mine. Military forces respond to reports of geological instability. Footage shows them establishing perimeter, then falling back as ground begins to heave and crack. Something pushes up from below, deforming landscape, creating structures that rise like buildings being born from stone. 17 sites, all experiencing simultaneous seal failures, all showing same phenomena: blue luminescence, extreme temperature changes, reality distortions, an emergence of entities cameras struggle to capture properly. Media coverage is confused and contradictory. Official statements blame everything from seismic events to industrial accidents to terrorism. But footage speaks for itself. Something is coming through. Barriers between below and above are collapsing. September 20th, day before predicted final emergence. I try one last time to contact Garrett. Still, no response, but Dr. Morrison calls me. He woke up, she says, voice shaking. Just for a few minutes. He was lucid, coherent. He asked me to call you, to give you message. What message? He said, tell them to look down, not up. When it happens, when they emerge fully, people will instinctively look to sky for threats. But that's wrong. Threat comes from below. Earth is opening. Tell them to get away from any deep infrastructure. Mines, tunnels, subways, geothermal wells, any place where humans have carved deep into crust. Those are highways. Those are doorways. Stay on surface. Stay in light. And whatever they do, don't listen to singing. Is he still conscious? No, he slipped back into coma right after delivering message. But his brain activity is strange now, showing patterns suggesting he's not alone in there. Other activity, foreign patterns overlapping with his normal neural signatures, as if something else is present in his mind, using his brain as receiver or transmitter. That night, I don't sleep. I sit at desk, reviewing all footage, all data, all interviews. I write this final section knowing it might be last thing I ever create, because tomorrow, at midnight, according to Garrett's prediction, emergence will be complete, entities from below will reach surface and everything will change. It's September 21st now, 11:47 PM, 13 minutes until midnight. I'm in my apartment, surrounded by monitors, showing live feeds from as many of 17 sites as I can access. News channels, security cameras, social media streams from people near locations. Activity has intensified throughout day. Seismographs worldwide showing coordinated spikes. Singing can be heard on surface now at all 17 locations. So loud it's causing structural damage to buildings, shattering windows, making people collapse in streets. Emergency evacuations are underway, but they're chaotic, disorganized. Most people don't understand what's happening. They think it's earthquakes or volcanic activity or terrorist attack. They don't understand threat is older and stranger and more fundamental than any human conflict. 11:51 PM. 9 minutes until midnight. Blue luminescence is visible from space now. Satellite footage shows all 17 sites glowing with that cold light, creating spots of unnatural brightness on the night side of planet. Light is spreading, moving across landscape in tendrils and flows, following underground infrastructure, using tunnels and mines and wells that humanity carved as pathways to reach ever farther from emergence points. 11:55 p.m, 5 minutes. My monitors show chaos. People running through streets. Military forces establishing perimeters they won't be able to hold. News anchors struggling to explain events they don't understand with vocabulary that doesn't exist. And singing. Even here, even in my apartment hundreds of miles from nearest emergence site, I can feel it. Vibration in walls, in floor, in my bones. Planet itself is singing, resonating with frequencies it hasn't produced in epochs. 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes. Luminescence reaches critical threshold. Video feeds from all 17 sites show same thing happening simultaneously. Light coalesces, condenses, forms structures that rise from emergence points like buildings, growing in fast motion, spires and curves and geometries defying normal physics, creating architecture existing partially in our dimensional space and partially in somewhere else. 11:59 p.m. 1 minute. Structures are massive now, visible from miles away, dominating landscape around each emergent site, and things are moving through them. Entities. Cameras can only capture them imperfectly, creating images, breaking video codecs and crashing computer systems. But impression is clear. They're tall, impossibly tall, moving with fluid grace through their impossible architecture. Midnight. World stops. Everything holds breath. For 3 eternal seconds, nothing moves, nothing sounds, nothing exists, except potential and anticipation. Then, Earth screams. It's not sound in conventional sense, it's vibration that resonates through every atom, every molecule, every structure from planetary core to atmospheric boundary. It's release of tension held for billions of years. It's shattering of seals and breaking of compacts and dissolution of boundaries that kept 2 realms separate. Every screen goes black simultaneously. Emergency broadcast takes over every channel. This is emergency alert. Seek shelter immediately. Stay away from all underground structures. Do not approach any areas showing unusual luminescence. Do not listen to any unusual sounds or music. This is not test. This is not drill. Power goes out. Emergency lights kick in, casting everything in red. And through my apartment walls, through foundation, through building itself, I feel it. Earth is breathing. Really breathing. Pulse that Garrett felt at Copper Ridge, that's been building and accelerating for months, is now everywhere. Entire planet pulsing with rhythm like heartbeat, slow and deep and ancient. My phone receives one final message, sender listed as unknown, but I know who it's from. Sky was always floor, now they're coming up to reclaim their roof. I look out window. Night sky unchanged, stars shining with usual indifference. But when I look down at street below, I see it. Blue luminescence, seeping up through storm drains and manholes and cracks in pavement. Singing grows louder, clear enough now that I can almost understand it, almost translate it, almost know what it's saying. But I remember Garrett's warning. Don't listen to singing. I turn away from window, back to dead monitors, powerless equipment, documentary that might never be seen, and I write these final words by light of emergency lanterns. We opened doors meant to stay closed. We drilled into depth sealed for reason. We woke something ancient and vast and patient, something content to sleep beneath us until we disturbed its rest. Now it's awake. Now it's rising. And now we'll discover what it means to share this planet with something that was here first, that never left, that simply retreated to deep places and waited. Surface we thought we owned was never really ours. We were just temporary residents, in thin layer between sky and something else. And our lease has expired. Entities are here. Emergence is complete. Old world ends. True world, layered world. World of depths and surfaces and spaces between begins. Look down, not up. Threat was never from stars. It was always from below, from spaces we carved into without permission, from ancient civilization that built its empire in planetary depths, billions of years before first humans stood upright. They're here now, in our tunnels, our mines, our subways, our foundations. Everywhere we went deep, they can now rise up. Network is complete. Connection between below and above is established. And somewhere, in hospital in Helena, Montana, man named Garrett Hayes lies in coma, his mind no longer entirely his own, speaking in languages older than humanity, delivering messages from entities existing in dimensions we barely perceive. His final warning echoes, sky is mirror. What you call above, they call below. You live between two realities, and you always have. Now veil is lifted. Now you see clearly. Now you understand what has always been true. This was never your world alone. Light fills my apartment now. I should run, should evacuate, should follow emergency protocols. But I can't move because I understand now. I see what Garrett saw, what Vincent saw, what anyone who went deep enough inevitably sees. We're not on top of world, we're in middle, and what lives below is coming up to meet what lives above. Emergence is complete, transformation begins, and in deep places all over world, in mines and tunnels and caves and wells, in every place where humanity carved pathways into depths, they're rising. Old ones, original inhabitants, true owners of spaces below. They're coming home. Documentary ends here. What follows is unknown. Future is unwritten, or perhaps already been written in languages we can't read, on walls in chambers we should never have found by civilizations existing before our species drew first breath. All we know for certain, we are not alone on this planet. We never were. We just didn't know where to look. We looked up at stars and wondered if anyone was watching. We should have looked down. Sky was always below us, and now it's opening.